Shalom, Call Halayim La Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Wadash. Double honors unto our apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well. Much peace and blessings to all you sense of Akim out there that's pushing this 100% truth with all sincerity, faith, with charity. This is your brother Osh from the Great Millstone, Miami County, coming back with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Wadash. In this lesson, I want to be going into an article, okay, basically going into how these so-called Christian pastors in America of today are straying further away from the scriptures than ever, okay? Now, us here that know the truth, those of us that know the truth of the scriptures, that have our eyes open, all right, especially here, start with our apostles and elders, a great millstone, and our brothers on now that have the 100% truth, okay? We know that these so-called Christians don't have the truth, period. Their interpretation of the scriptures is totally off, okay? And it always been off from the time even before, but mostly, going into, mainly speaking on so-called Protestantism, what they call, all right, what our apostles and the elders, starting Apostle like to call plantation Christianity. It was always off. It was the doctrine of the devil, the doctrine of Esau, Edom, that they forced on our people to get their minds and get their psyche to make them better slaves. Okay, you have a lot of our people here in 2022 are waking up to that. They're waking up to Esau's white supremacy, his so-called Jesus, his white Jesus, and there has been other reports coming out of how our so-called black people are leaving the Christian church in record numbers, and a lot of them are finding out the truth that they're Hebrew Israelites, right? But a lot of them are also throwing the baby out with the bathwater and throwing the Bible out altogether, which that's to Esau, that's good too, because Esau is really done with the scriptures. Him using the Bible as a tool to brainwash our people, he's basically done with that. Now he's moving on to his technocracy, his New World Order agenda, and he really wants people to be atheists and to not believe in God at all. He wants them to believe wholeheartedly in his system and his science, all right? But it's coming out that that these so-called Christian pastors, they're a lot of them are with the system. A lot of them are with Esau's New World Order agenda, and they're getting orders to stray further and further away from the Bible. Okay, and when you go into this article, it's going to show you that the so-called the number one so-called Christian pastors that are straying away from the Bible altogether are the so-called black churches, which, starting with our apostles and elders, start with Apostle and the brothers on down, we've always said this. Apostle always said that the so-called black church is the biggest joke going, and they, out of all the so-called Christian churches, the so-called black churches, the least learned and the least taught when it comes to the scriptures. When you go to the black church, it's nothing but shucking, jiving, singing and dancing. Okay, clap your hands. Hey, neighbor, turn to the right, rub your neighbor's shoulder. A bunch of bullshit, and pass the plate. Okay, and then we're going to eat some catfish and pork chops after the service. With some, and if you're in the South here, like here in Miami, you may eat some comforters or some shit. Okay? So we're just going to go into this article, read a little bit, and we're going to get some scriptures to show you that this is, in the article, they say this is a shocker. But we here that know the truth, this ain't no shock to us. We've been saying this. But it just goes to show you more and more that we're getting closer and closer to the last days. All right? But this is from endtimeheadlines.org. And the title of this article is Evangelical Christians Could Be in Jeopardy of Losing Their Theological Reputation. Which they've been lost their reputation. They never had a reputation. But even with their doctrine that they teach, which we know is totally off, they're even straying away from their own doctrine. You see that? It says, once considered the denomination of scriptural truth bearers, evangelical Christians might be in jeopardy of losing their theological reputation. In what researchers described as a shocking find, a new report from the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University indicated just over half of all U.S. pastors of evangelical churches, 51%, have a biblical worldview. Okay, that's to say that 51% of them actually have a doctrine that actually aligns with the scriptures, which we know 0% of them have a doctrine that fully aligns with the scriptures, because as we know, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. And if you don't have the full truth, you don't have no truth. They may preach certain things that may be true according to the Bible, but 99% of what they teach is off. They don't teach the true name of the Lord. They don't teach who the Lord truly came and died for. They don't teach who he's coming back for. They don't teach to keep the law. They don't teach nothing right. They don't teach how the Lord truly looked. All right? But even within what they have been teaching, what they consider doctrine, they going totally off. They doing away with the Bible altogether. They're not even hiding it no more. They're not even using the scriptures as a cloak. You go to some of these in these churches, especially, which we're gonna go into the black church, they don't open the scriptures up not once. It's just 2-3 hours of motivational speaking and dancing and singing, dancing, man. Like Apostle Gabar always says, it's a minstrel show. Okay. Launched as an annual tracking study in 2020, the American Worldview Inventory is a survey that evaluates the worldview of American adults. It is based on 54 worldview-related questions that measure both beliefs and behavior within 8 categories of worldview application: purpose and calling, family and value of life, God, creation and history, faith practices, sin, salvation, and relationship with the Most High, or what they call God. Okay, human character and nature, lifestyle, behavior, and relationships, and Bible, truth, and morals. Okay, and as we get closer and closer to the end, like it says, what's that in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter? In the latter days, perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of themselves, heady, high-minded, roughly paraphrasing, haters of the Most High, lovers of pleasures more than the Most High, roughly paraphrasing. All these things, that's the spirit of this world. They're pushing the LGBT lifestyle on the children. They're pushing men to be feminine and women to be masculine. They're telling you, that it's okay to believe whatever you want to believe and do whatever you want to do. And all this teaching and doctrine is bleeding over into so-called Christianity. Because for the most part, you so-called Christians preach a doctrine of love everything, love everybody, and be tolerant of this and that. When you in that type of spirit, anything goes. So whatever the spirit is in the world, you're going to automatically move in that spirit. You see? Because you don't have a standard. You don't have the ability to put your foot down and say, no, we're not going with that. All right. When you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It says, but you're not going to read this whole thing. Okay. I just want to get to the point. It says, perhaps most surprisingly, just 48% of pastors of Baptist churches, widely viewed as the most enthusiastic in embracing the Bible as the Word of God, held a biblical worldview. Pastors of Southern Baptist churches, by contrast, were far more likely, 78%, to have consistently biblical beliefs. And that's where you go into what Esau calls the Bible Belt. A lot of these Southern Baptist churches, mainly so-called white churches, they would be the most learned when it comes to the scriptures out of the bunch of so-called Christians. We say so-called because the true Christians are the Israelites that believe in Yahweh Shai. Okay? But out of those so-called Christians, mainly the Southern Bible Belt Christians, they know the most about the scriptures. A lot of them know about the MOTB, Revelation 13:16. They know what it is. They understand Esau's NWO agenda. They understand what's getting ready to happen. A lot of them have, they understand certain prophecies. Some will even tell you, to go as far as to tell you America is Babylon the Great. But the so-called black church, they don't know nothing about the scriptures. You can't even tell you what tribe the Lord was from. All right? And this is the point. It says pastors associated with traditionally black Protestant churches and Catholic priests were found least likely to hold to biblical theism, with the incidence of biblical worldview measured in single digits. 9% of pastors leading traditionally black churches had a biblical worldview, along with 6% of Catholic priests. And we know those Catholic priests is way off, totally gone. Okay, and that would be Catholicism. We dealing with strictly, so-called Christians, evangelical Christians. So the worst out of the bunch would be you so-called black churches, you black pastors, man. Which is not a shocker at all to us. We've been know this. And that's why you have so-called black men mainly leaving the church in record numbers, because they're not learning nothing. And they seeing straight through the BS. And a lot of them is coming to the truth. Why? Because we're living in the information age. We're living in the time of the devil, the so-called white man, Esau Edom, being exposed. His power is dwindling and his witchcraft is dwindling. And he's a lot of people are waking up. All right? So we're just going to get a couple scriptures, and Lord, when I close it out. This is Romans chapter 10 and verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to the Most High for Israel is that they might be saved. Okay, and this is Paul, the Apostle Paul, who they call Apostle of the Gentiles, right? Speaking to the Romans, but he's talking about Israel. Why? It's because he was speaking to the Israelites in Rome. Okay? And we know today that Israelites are so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Also, you have Israelites scattered abroad looking like the different nations. And the Lord said that salvation is for you. And you only, the elect of you. All right, verse 2. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. So the Apostle Paul is saying, yeah, Israelites, they have a great zeal when it comes to the Most High. This is true. And you see that when you look in these black churches. Do you see jumping up and down, and they get passionate, they get into it, man. Especially the pastor, when he talk, they have that voice, they go up and down, and they be sweating and shit. You know? Jake love going to church. They make sure they dress to the nines. Make sure they on time. Every week, they give all their money to the pastor. Why is that? Because they have a zeal for God. They, in their mind, they believe what they doing is right, and that's what's going to get them into heaven. But it's not according to knowledge. They're not learning nothing. They're not bringing out no scriptures. They're not increasing in the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Lord in no way. You got certain jakes that have been in the church 40, 50, 60 years, and you give them a general quiz on the Bible, they can't answer no questions. They can't. You ask them what's sin, they're going to say, oh, missed the mark. It's when you miss the mark. You ask them, you know, a lot of them think that the Lord was really born on Christmas, December 25th. A lot of them, you know, still celebrate Easter and all these other wicked holidays. And you got a lot of these white Christians, they know that shit is off. A lot of these white Christians don't even celebrate Christmas and shit like that. Okay, you got the 7-day Adventists, which they off as hell, but you know, at least they know that. I believe they keep the dietary law to a degree. I believe they call themselves keeping the Sabbath, which they say is Saturday. But at least they know that you're supposed to keep the Sabbath. You know? These Christians, these black Christians, they gone. All right. Verse 3, for they being ignorant of the Most High's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of the Most High. Right, so they think that going to church every week and paying your tithes and you know, worshiping sweet Jesus is righteousness. But they don't understand that you're supposed to be keeping the law to the best of your ability with faith, truly repenting, being sorrowful for your sins, and not just adding sin to sin, doing whatever the hell you want as long as you go to church. A lot of these Christians smoke cigarettes and shit. They don't know nothing, man. All right. And of course, I gotta add this. This is Hosea chapter 6. And Lord, will I close out with this? I ain't want to make this long. Oh, my bad. Hosea 4. Hosea 4 and 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Who are the people of the Most High? The Israelites. And they're destroyed because they don't know nothing. And it's of course they're gonna be destroyed for their ignorance. But it's really gonna be on the heads of you so-called pastors and leaders that's supposed to be call yourself teaching and feeding the people. All right, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power, I will also forget thy children. Right, a priest is supposed to keep the law, supposed to know the law, supposed to keep knowledge, supposed to be able to teach the people, teach their families, teach their children how to truly serve the Most High. Our people, they don't know the first thing about truly serving the Most High. You go to the hood, you know, go to any area where that's predominantly so-called Negroes there, or Latinos for that matter, and you're going to see a church on every corner, on every block, churches everywhere. But that's going to be in the same places where it's the most drug use, the most prostitution, the most gang banging, the most violent crime. showing you that those churches, they not doing nothing for the community, really benefiting Jake's spirit, which shows you that it's the Most High ain't dealing with him. But we already knew this, man. But this is just further proof that the so-called doctrine of Christianity is off. It's not true. If it was, it wouldn't be dwindling. It would be growing. More and more people would be going to church. More and more people would be, coming to that doctrine. And as the scriptures say, once it reached to the four corners of the earth, the end would have came. But they'll tell you that's the falling away, brother. We living in the days of the fall. You fell away a long time ago. All right, and that's a story, a video for another time. But it's coming out. They're not even using the Bible. They're not even using the scriptures, man. They're just up there talking. So yeah, man, this is just more proof that you so-called Christians, y'all don't got the truth at all. And you get ready to go into the worst times that this earth has ever seen without no covering from the Lord, without no hedge of protection from the Lord, and your ass gonna be out there getting tormented. And the prophets, start with our apostles and others, a great millstone, and the brothers on down warned you. Hey, so with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachal Kodash, until the next one, Shalom.